My name is Destiny Jones, and today I'll be talking about Jane Edna Hunter. Jane Edna Hunter was born on December 13, 1882, in Pendleton, South Carolina, to Edward Harris and Harriet Milner. She was laid to rest at the age of 88 on January 19, 1971, at the Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland, Ohio. She was a social worker pioneer in Cleveland, nationally known for founding the Phyllis Wheatley Association that provided young black women with safe housing, job training, and recreation. The association in which opened Camp Mueller and Cuyahoga Valley in the 1930s. In her early life, Jane grew up in a tenant house in the Woodburn Plantation in Pendleton, South Carolina. Her father was a sharecropper who was born into slavery, and her mother narrowly escaped by being born the day Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Her father died when she was only 10 years old, so Jane had to work various jobs as a live-in servant. At the age of 14, Jane began school, attending the Ferguson and Williams Academy in Abbeville, South Carolina. She graduated with an 8th grade education and proceeded to work domestic. At 17, Jane then married a 57-year-old named Edward Hunter, a wealthy man that could support her family, although he was 40 years older than her. Jane eventually left Edward after a year and a half of marriage to pursue her career in nurse training, first at the Cannon Street Hospital and Training School for Nurses in Charleston, and then attempted Hampton Institute in Virginia. She soon followed her friends to Cleveland. She found it really hard to find safe, affordable housing and a job in nursing. During her time in Cleveland, she was one of the only African-American professional nurses. Through a church connection, Jane met the office secretary to John Rockefeller's doctor, which led her to social connection and nursing jobs. Her hard walks of life and the connections that Jane had made were what shaped her into the very young woman she was becoming. After Jane's mother died in 1910, she strived to build a shelter for black women. Her and 7 of her girlfriends founded a club in 1911. Their dues were a nickel a week. They were then able to be incorporated in March of 1911, and they changed the name to the Phyllis Wheatley Association in honor of Phyllis Wheatley, a famous poet. Their board of trustees was quite unusual because they had black and white bodies on it. The association started out with a 23-room boarding house for about a dozen of clients and only $1,500 in the bank. It was later upgraded to an 88-room with a building next door for activities. As they progressed, they were able to build a 9-story facility on Cedar Avenue in 1927, which still stands today with the help of its white supporters such as John D. Rockefeller Jr. The Phyllis Wheatley Association provided single black women with lodging, training in domestic skills, job placement, and recreational opportunities. During the 1930s, the PWA started the Stuffin School of Music in Cleveland and Camp Mueller in Cuyahoga Valley. Over the years, PWA services changed to meet community needs, later adding a daycare and apartments for seniors and people with disabilities. In her middle-aged years, Jane wrote an autobiography titled A Nickel and a Prayer. It entails her spiritual quest for poverty in the South to an outstanding career in the North with helping black women safely navigate the Great Migration. In 1947, Hunter reached retirement age. She reluctantly resigned as a general secretary of the PWA. She then put all her focus into the development of the Phyllis Wheatley Foundation. All of its chapters in the country raised money for college scholarships and sponsored women's programs and services. Hunter spoke nationally, giving motivational and political speeches, and she wrote in the newspaper columns. Before she died in 1971, she put her will that her assets would go to the foundation's scholarship fund. Jane Edna Hunter will forever be known as a social worker pioneer aiming to help black women be successful in a world that wants to see them suffer.